good at having his own ideas and tricks in the opening. He was famous for studying the old masters when people were studying the latest Boleslavsky variations. And in this game from 1997, he really baffles Peter Heine Nielsen in the Maroczy Sicilian with some very, very tricky setup. It's really smart, and the interesting thing is that Peter Heine himself is an expert on and was an expert on the Maroczy Sicilian, and he's totally confused and get completely crossed in this game from 1997, where it was probably Bent Larsen's last really good tournament. Bent is black, and we'll on the way explain what the Maroczy bind or Sicilian is, and it's an opening we will return to because it's rather interesting. It can occur in the English or in the accelerated Sicilian dragon. Okay, let's roll. Uh, Peter starts with d4, and we see that Bent, he liked in his older days, he was beginning to like all kind of weird Benonis. He was definitely more becoming a tactician than a strategic players in his later years, and he was a very dangerous tactician, as we're gonna see in this game. And here he goes d6 and g6, and this is the well-known Maroczy Sicilian or accelerated dragon, what you call it, where white has a clear central majority. The interesting thing about this is it's always been considered to be better for white, slightly better for white due to more space. And if you like this as black, it's very good news because you can almost always get this. So I've been playing this with black, actually with very, very good results. But sometimes on the way the position is not that great. The thing is that white has a lot of more space, but he also, by putting his pawns on c4 and e4, has created some weaknesses in his camp. The most notable is that this bishop sometimes becomes bad. It has no natural role in this position. There's no place where you say, oh, the bishop would be very good there. So often it ends up just shooting into thin air. Another theme is that the black squares has been weakened, and sometimes black can take over the black squares with his dragon structure. Okay, let's and here Ben Larsen did something interesting. He took on d4, and it's actually probably a mistake in this position, especially the way he's playing it. I think it's not a mistake in general, but the way he's playing it, it is. And here he goes bishop e3. This is all main known theory, castle, and queen d2. And here Larsen plays bishop d7, and that's inaccurate, for certainly inaccurate. The most common move here is either bishop e6, or as the Azerbaijani players are popularizing, a5 followed by a4, and just trying to get ahead here. And I'm not sure this is bad for black after a4, a4, a5, a4. And I think Mamedov has excellent results with black in this system. So you can study his game if you're interested in this. But Ben Larsen did this. And this is actually a mistake because he will get a position that's well known in the Maroczy, but with one tempo less. But I think he did it on purpose to confuse Mr. Nielsen. A5, and we see this position. Usually here it's black to move, and he will play knight c5. But here it's white to move. And so white get this position. He get the rook fc1 with a tempo. Because usually it would have been black to move in that position if he had played knight c6, d6, bishop d7, and taken on d4, and so on and so on. But in this kind of position, it's not that important with one tempo. The thing is, of course, in this position now, the black plan would usually be something like this, and rook fc8. And a guy like Peterson has played this a lot with black, and I also played it, and it's very solid. You have only active pieces, you have slightly less space, but you will get active play against white's position. But Ben Larsen had a completely different setup in mind, and here it's actually doesn't matter that the rooks are on b1 and c1. Maybe they are worse there. So e6, and that of course weakens this square, and immediately white jumps in, which makes a lot of sense. You don't want to give this bishop, and here I think this is the interesting point. The thing is, the bishop is rather good here. It covers the pawn on d6, and it attacks on h2. The thing is, you would love to drive it away with f4, but then e4 is hanging. And you then never want to take here, because then you lose all control over the dark squares. So I think something here, white should probably play something like this, just to try and confuse black, would have been best. I think black goes queen b6 and f5, and we'll have a big mess. I'm not sure white is much better, but it is probably the right way to play. Instead he played rook d1, very natural move. The problem here is, of course, that with e6 move, usually black would go to b6 with the queen, but here he can go somewhere else. Boof! And maybe the d pawn is not that juicy anymore. I think the move like a3 is interesting here. I think black can take and would probably be fine. You can also go queen g3. You might even go f5. It's not so easy for white to get on with this in a natural way. Anyway, he played d3, which looks natural, but of course, black didn't play queen h4 to go back. He went, of course, took here. And white must have seen this position when he played rook d1, and probably he maybe he thought that, okay, we're gonna have a draw here, and that's fine. At the time, Ben Larsen and Peter Heine had the same rating. Peter took a big jump later, a few years after this, but at that time he was sort of stuck on 25 something in the early 20s or 30s and so on. So he was not really, I don't think he had that much confidence either. So I thought he thought, okay, maybe I'm fine here. If he goes king f1, black will play f5, and we'll have a super mess. It might be good, it might be bad, I don't know. It's definitely messy. He went to h1 and probably thought, okay, we'll have a draw. You give check, I move my king, you give check, I move my king, and so on. The thing is, of course, black's not gonna give a check in this position. He has a much better move, and this is which really shows how dangerous white's attack, black's attack was. Boom, and you can't take that, because then you're mated. So okay, now it's time to really defend. And the thing is, it's really coming, this attack. It's not something you can stop. And there's a lot of different ways it can play out. We see that this bishop is suddenly a big player in the game. Queen d3 makes a lot of sense. He can't take because of the mate, so now he's threatening to take. And here Ben Larsen actually did a mistake. He could have won, I think, with this move. And the idea is of course threatening f3, but it's also threatening this move, and it's actually totally devastating, this move. I don't see any defense after this. But instead he gave a check here and went here. And that's all very interesting. And here Peter is I think was probably very confused. He could have tried to run away from the bill, as we would say, with this move, and I think he's okay. White Black will of course have long-term attacking chances against the king, but White will have a piece more, so it would be a interesting game. Instead, he played knight d4. And here Black has a really, really, really nice move. Can you see it? This is also shows why Ben Larsen was so dangerous. He had great vision for tactics. Bishop e4. Attacking the rook on b1, and of course now White is in almost a hopeless position. He ended up giving up the queen, and it was a bit of it ended up being a little bit messy because Bent he didn't play it perfectly, but this position is really nice that the knight is that is attacking here. The queen is taking away everything on this diagonal. So it is basically a checkmate unless the queen can take, and it has to take. And Black of course has well, we count the pawn. He has 4 pawns, and a queen for 3 minor pieces, and it should be very easy. Of course, these minor pieces, if you get them coordinated, they might attack strongly, and it goes like this. And I think a4 was maybe not the best move, but it's natural to try and open the position. Of course, if you can get the rooks in, White would be totally toast. But queen e7 is probably better. Maybe preparing something with d5. I kind of like that. Just giving up something, saying, okay, I got 3 passed pawn on the king side anyway. So b4 and d5. And here I think Cesarski in Chessbase recommends e5 as winning, and it looks natural. There's c4 is hanging, and I think it should be winning. Base d5, take, and well, it's. I don't think the rest is that interesting. The only thing was Black has just to find a way to get to the white king and get the pawns rolling and so on, and avoid falling under some sort of an attack. And of course they are active, but you have 1 pawn left with White. This is a lot. Check. And here he gave up because the rook is lost here. So a great game by Larsen, and well, it's not lost. You will get the rook on c4, but it's nevertheless pretty hopeless. Or maybe you can take on d4 first. I think, I don't know. I think it's probably +8 for Black, and and Ben Larsen actually won a lot of games in the Maroczy with different kind of weird ideas that he cooked up. He was very famous for studying weird stuff, trying to take his opponent out of the theory, out of his comfort zone, and onto Ben Larsen's playing field. And he was rightfully famous for that. And to be honest, I think Carlsen is rather inspired by Larsen. He has admitted that he did study his 50 best games, and I think a lot of the philosophy in Ben Larsen's opening choices is also present in the way that Carlsen chooses his openings. Anyway, this was GM Talks. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a pleasure recording it for you. Thank you for watching.